Hey Faith Family, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast at Calvary Bible, where we go beyond the Sunday sermon to explore some rabbit holes and to bring some biblical truths to the surface. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Calvary Bible Church, welcome back to another week's installment of Jokes with Jonathan.
Is that what it's called now?
Should be.
It used to be called Beyond Sunday, with a spiritual emphasis on making sure that the teaching times get extended into our lives during the week.
That's a thing of the past.
That's over. Okay.
All right. We will get there. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
right.
So Randall, my grandma, when she turned 65, she started walking 10 miles a day.
Wow.
We have no idea where she is.
Oh.
There we go.
That would be funny if that doesn't end up being true sometime. That's so sad. Oh,
it can be sad.
Bless their hearts.
Or true.
Oh.
All right, into Ephesians. All right, we're done with joke time. Yep, we were in Ephesians chapter 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I usually bring my my notes up. There's 2 points, so I don't have them in front of me.
Yeah.
Do you remember what they were offhand?
Yeah, I kind of do. Yeah, the first part of the section was having to do with these grace gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget how I worded it. It was something like, we've all been given grace gifts. And then the second part is for the purpose of building up the body, or something along those lines.
Yep.
Those were the 2 points.
All right. So that sounds right to me.
11 to 16, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Ephesians 4, 11 to 16, I think was the text.
That's correct. All right. So 2 to 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Right. So 1, you regularly mention this two-way split of gifts, speaking and serving.
Right.
Okay, those categories.
Right,
and
right.
We got a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Yeah, it's just for fun.
Well,
yeah,
it's not just for fun.
It kind of is. Take a guess. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Take a shot at it.
So part 1 of the question, can someone have gifts in both categories? Because you've asked us a couple times now. Raise your hand if you're the speaking. Raise your hand if you're serving.
Yeah.
So you would say,
and I should qualify that, especially with those type of minds floating around. I should say, what's your predominant? What do you think your major one is? When I spoke with somebody on Sunday, one of the things I said was that the start of any of these gift list is often talking about we're all serving. So there is a sense in which, of course, the speaking gift is also serving the body in a general. It's a specific way of serving. Mm-hmm. So I did mention that to someone on Sunday right after church because they had a really good comment about like what if you had the gift of exhortation. Mm-hmm. You are using words to communicate to someone else to help them. Mm-hmm. And so while that is predominantly a serving gift, there is speaking involved. But the speaking part of that includes your capacity to inform doctrine or to instruct in doctrine and Christian living, as opposed to exhortation usually being you either try to give someone some comfort or some counsel, and I'm sure you're bathing either of those in Scripture. Mm-hmm. But that would not be, as I said to the person on Sunday, that's not predominantly a speaking gift.
So hold on, why not? How's that? Because if you're saying another way to think of speaking and serving in my mental visual mind is my mouth or my hands.
Yeah, so that's what we were getting at on Sunday with this particular person who made a great observation about, well, I kind of, I kind of do both. Mm-hmm. So the speaking, and I took them back to the 1 Peter text where Peter divides them into 2 categories, and I said, you'll notice that the one who speaks is supposed to be speaking the oracles of God. So that's a gift focused on you are speaking God's word to people. Now, you might do that as a way of encouragement, and you might quote a verse, but that's different from you instructing the person. You're trying to encourage them, trying to help them along, and it's different than a formal instructive type of purpose. That's all.
So is it the instructive or is it the formal thing that would distinguish it?
I
And maybe
think
this isn't worth talking about.
no, well, what's worth it is when you. I want to get back to your original question. What's worth it is when someone said, "I think I'm a little of both," and I would say, "Oh, no doubt in my mind that there's all kinds of people who have multiple gifts, not just one." I believe that's true. And so a person could easily raise their hand both and say, I have the gift of teaching, but I also have the gift of serving.
Yeah, because I think about myself, possible. Like I in a lot of ways prefer to serve. It's a comfortable place for me, just being behind the scenes and doing something and just helping, moving chairs, and things like that.
Exactly.
But I feel like an obligation or a compulsion to teach too. Like I want people to understand what God's word has to say and its implications on their life and for their soul. So I feel like I go both ways, and I don't know why do you say predominant then too? Like, what's your predominant? What's that matter?
Well, I think all that matters is, if, we're back to the discussion of which gift do you have? Pick one. Maybe some people don't have to pick one. Maybe they say I'm both. My guess is though that they have a leaning towards, I really believe God has given me my function in the body is this.
Gotcha.
That's what I feel like a lot of us do.
Yeah. Okay.
I know my place in this body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
gotcha. So to take this a little bit further then, so we've got these two categories, serving, speaking. Once you've got that general direction then, and what's your take on, like, how important is it then to hone in on what specific gift do I have? Is it the gift of prophecy versus teaching, or serving versus generosity?
Yeah, I think that what we're doing in these spiritual gift lists and in these concepts and in their context in Ephesians 4, in 1 Corinthians 12, in Romans 12, what we're doing is we are following the Spirit's promptings. And so in a real practical sense, especially if you are trying to say, I do want to be plugged into the body. If you're a part of this faith family, I want to be plugged into the body. Then you really do have to listen to the Spirit's prompting. What is it that he wants you to do? And then you do have to have a sense of there's enough ministry going on in this body for you to find your place. I don't think necessarily it's a huge deal. I think it's not a huge deal to pinpoint it as much as it is, are you active in the body with one of those areas? That's why I just like starting with the general sense of, Peter says there's two ways, do one or the other. And I think the Spirit of God really does guide people. I mean, I've listened to so many parishioners through the years who've said to me, I know the Lord wanted me to do this. I know they did. And in this case, it's the Lord directing them to a particular service, an aspect or an element of service where they know they're in the will of God and they're fulfilled in that, and the body is benefiting from it.
I have a couple thoughts. So I think, so if I'm hearing you right, you've got your two categories. So let's just go to the speaking side for a second. You got the speaking gift of prophecy and a speaking gift of teaching. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying there's some value in being able to pinpoint it, but it's not the end all. Like you've got to nail the right one.
Yeah, because I tried to say this on Sunday, and I've said it so many times through the years, but I don't ever remember what the venue is. But the reason why I'll be careful. One of the reasons why God didn't tell you how to find it is because he didn't think you needed to. Okay, just think that through. This would be one of those cruel jokes, which thankfully God never plays on us, where he says, hey, look, I'm giving you a gift, but you have no idea what it is, and you'll have no idea to find it until someone comes up with this gift test. And then if you ever find one of those, and maybe you can take one, and maybe you can find someone to read it for you and decipher it, and that's a cruel game to play. And all the revelation that he gave us. So I love the confidence of you're going to know. You are going to know. the Spirit of God is going to direct you to your place of service. I may just say too, this is fresh in my mind because of an email that I just read this morning. I had emailed my favorite professor in my lifetime, Dr. John Hanna from the Dallas Seminary days, way back in the 80s. And oh my goodness, he just was so helpful to me. Mm-hmm. And so I was writing to him and I was saying, hey, can you just help me be a better professor? Would you just give me some, he's been doing this now, I think he said 50, so it's close to 50 years now he's been teaching, and he's one of the best professors ever. And so one of the items in a long list of things, he was so gracious to me. One of them was, if you can provide simplicity, mm-hmm. your students will be able to find their way to complexity, which I thought was such a great thing for me to remember, because a lot of the subjects that I deal with are extremely complex with Old Testament hermeneutics. And I thought, wow, look at that. So let's do this with the gift, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why I have tried to say, take a shot at and pick one, you got a 50-50 shot, is because that simplicity sets the person in motion where they'll arrive at their complexity, maybe the more specific gift. Mm-hmm. But if they don't get to the simplicity part, they may not ever make it, which I thought was such a neat. That's why he's like my favorite professor, because the stuff that comes out of his mouth is like, oh my word, that's so true. So
that was a simple statement in itself.
It was
simplicity to complexity.
It really was. So for what it's worth, that's why I really believe that God set us up in this way, because the Spirit of God, who grants the gifts as he wills, also grants the guidance to put them into practice. Mm-hmm. We could, and I don't know where we're going with this, but what if we just stopped and said, it's not confusion that's keeping anyone from serving. It's not confusion. It's something else. I wonder what it might be. And I'm saying this with just a heart thrilled from, coming last night just for a few minutes and mm-hmm. seeing. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I should have, because I've seen it before, but again, a building, every level of the building plus outside, every level was filled with kids and staff and volunteers. And it was like, wow, there's a whole lot of people mm-hmm. there. And what I said to Michelle when I got back was, it was great to see some of these new people here mm-hmm. diving in, people that I had in the Welcome to Faith, that we had in the Welcome to Faith family class. Here they are. So, it's a great, they'll find their way.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It was probably, longer than I should have.
No, that was great. My mind's going all over the place.
You can cut me off anytime, right? Because you're the head of this thing.
Yeah, right. So, no, I think probably one of the most helpful pieces of the 50-50 breakdown is, like you just said, mm-hmm. it takes away I've got to figure it out before I even jump in the waters. Mm-hmm. Just jump in and you'll begin to find your way.
Yeah.
And so I think that's extremely helpful.
Peter's glad you think that way.
Good. So now I'm thinking about, let me say one thing first. Mm-hmm. The gift lists, I don't know if you've said this yet, that we have in the New Testament, mm-hmm. they're not identical.
Correct.
So
nor are they comprehensive.
Right, which opens up the opportunity for, there may be spiritual gifts that are available to a believer that are not listed in the New Testament,
or would be subsets of, if you had an inspired author here, Peter or Paul, if they were sitting here listening to you, they might say, well, yeah, come up with one and I'll find a category under which it fits.
Gift of evangelism.
There.
Just in case. I might be able to claim that as one. Not for myself, but
what
you're talking about.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah.
This is what I deal with all the time.
All right. Well, I won't continue down that road. But another question that has to do with these two categories then is, the speaking gifts feel pretty similar to me. So if I'm thinking about going from simplicity, getting into mm-hmm. finding an avenue mm-hmm. that really is a place where I can thrive, mm-hmm. The speaking gifts have a lot of similarities, but the serving gifts feel to me like they could be endless. from generosity to service
It's
to you name
just
it.
amazing.
So in that regard, it feels to me like if you're serving, it might have more value to say, I think that this is a lane that I need to stay in, and kind of just, be strong in.
I agree with that. I like that thought. The other thing is, you and I have experienced this, where a parishioner comes, they're fairly new to us, and they see a gap in the body, and they say, I'd really like to fill that gap. So there's another way to think about, not only if you find your lane, stay in it, but sometimes you actually create the lane in a church like ours, where not everything's getting done, and all of a sudden God has just said, you know what, this would really help people. This would really help build this body up. I mean, that's a little different from your angle, but I think your angle is correct. Since there are so many different ways to serve, well, find the one that suits you. One way to do this too would be to say, some ministries require very little interaction with people. Very little. And that person is thrilled to be able to serve like that without a whole lot of interaction with people. But then there's other ministries of serving that you really do need to interact with people. You have to. So even that might be one of those where, which one are you? Because now when you start to look at where to serve, maybe you're not fond of maybe you don't have a lot of people skills or something. To put it bluntly, maybe that's just not where you need to be. But maybe it is. Yeah.
And I can think of people, again, with a full heart across our congregation who are serving in different areas like that.
Yeah.
Some don't know a thing, the 99% of the church doesn't know what in the world they're doing, but they're serving in a lane and they're helping.
Yeah.
But how much then, does the 21st century American church and our idea of serving, kids ministry, children's ministry, spiritual gift, versus this body image that we have, and do we lose something there, or do we gain something just in the day that we live in and the opportunities that are unique or different?
So I think first of all, let me go with the loss section. I think what we lose is the fact that in Lancaster County, in our particular time in history, we lose sight. Most of the time, we're not dealing with actually helping people in great need because of finances and because of affluence for the most part. Okay, we have benevolence, which is a big deal. And we have, every once in a while, we know of people that really need, they need some help. But most of us, we just live kind of independently of each other. So I think there is a loss where the church in America right now and in Lancaster County hasn't experienced what the early church did. And that was the fact that they embraced Christ means that they lost a lot. That has not happened to us. So I think the lost part of that is true. To start with that end of it, which I think is where you started, to start with that segment of it. Yeah. So I think we've lost some things just by virtue of our time in history, our economic scenario, but also the way in which the world continues to tolerate the Christian faith here very, very well. Like, for instance, to have any Christian influence at all at Donegal is amazing.
It is. Yeah, it is. I don't think that's quite where I was getting. When I see these gifts that are, we talk about serving, and we say to the faith family, hey, use your gifts, serve. It might be moving chairs after church on Sunday. It might be helping, as a volunteer down in junior church. It might be setting up for communion. So it seems like we equate doing a task with a spiritual gift. Is that the case? Or, my spiritual gift is, and this isn't poking at anybody, but just my spiritual gift is filling the communion cups once a month. That would seem like it would fall under like a servant's heart, behind the scenes. you tracking where I'm going?
I am.
I'm not sure I even know where I'm going.
Well, I mean, when you started with, do we have a loss though because of this particular, because of our church culture?
Yeah, we have an American church culture that is different than, the Corinthian church culture and the Roman church culture and
Which
so
is
on.
sort of where I was going with. Yeah, there are some losses because our society, Christians in our society, it's different for us than it was. And I think for them, they were forced, if you want to use the term, they were forced into it, but they did it because they knew they were all one. We don't have that sense of it's us, we need each other, because it's more or less kind of, it's icing on the cake, when we get together type stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure but let me go to the gain side.
I hear what you're saying, though.
Let me go to the gain side of it, though. I think now, because of all the agencies that we have, because of the way towns are set up, I do see that our day presents some great opportunities for us to serve. Mm-hmm. So, like the crew that's a part of this, helping the refugee family with Bethany Christian Services or something. Yep. Thanks to that organization, we have an opportunity to do something like that. It would be the same with the local evangelism, the local outreach committees that are working here with Austin. There's a lot of things we can do in the town. Mm-hmm. Those are gains for us now that I don't know if they would have been available in the first century. I'm not sure. So there might be some gains for us too. Yeah. But I do think that, to go back to your examples, once again, Peter or Paul might say, yeah, you just described a subcategory under which serving works.
Yeah, and I think so.
And that deacon word that I referred to on Sunday, we're used to that word meaning serving, but a lot of us think of it as a particular, a group of people who have an official office to do something in the church.
Yeah. I think where my mind starts to lose traction a little bit is I want to figure out what my gift is, get a defined understanding of what that gift is, and then do it. And knowing that there's some give and take, or it's not always black and white. And even like we talked about for a minute, the gift lists aren't the same. So getting back to your original point, just getting in, getting off the bench, getting in the game, serving, speaking, equipping the body in whatever way that I have opportunity to, and being a productive part of the body.
And the last part, now you arrived at the purpose of Ephesians 4. So that those last few words that you said are reflecting the theology of this. Earlier than that, when your mind is trying to mull over all those things, you're betraying yourself, as you should, as a modern, postmodern type of person. And so the questions that you're bringing to the text are questions that God isn't going to answer. Yeah. That's what makes that really hard. It's not that you shouldn't think about those. It's just that what we need to focus on beyond Sunday is the realization that I tried to say a couple of times. Does someone realize that if they're not using their gift in the body is susceptible to spiritual error? That's a really important point in that paragraph. Normally, I would have come to this paragraph and said, well, if you have a speaking gift and you're not speaking truth, the body is going to be susceptible to error. But this whole text says, if you have a speaking or a serving gift and you're not serving, the body suffers. And the suffering was worded with respect to being tossed back and forth like children who can't decide what's true and what's not. So that to me is fascinating. So the purpose of Ephesians 4 is to make sure that all of us are motivated to do our part, every part working properly, I think was the last part of the reading in verse 16. That's really what we need to be doing all week, making sure we're a part of the body.
Right. And to take just that body illustration a little further, we've all felt it when one part of our body isn't working quite right and we have to compensate. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I just looked at his knee. Yeah.
Right, your wrist. So
Yep.
right, when we're compensating,
Yep.
like the last week, all of a sudden my back started bothering
I
me.
wonder why, because you're walking like
'Cause I'm walking like a ding dong.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so I become more susceptible when one part of my body isn't
Yeah.
working like it's supposed to.
Yep.
Um,
Each part is working. When each part is working properly is how that reading comes to a close. And that's
Makes
the
the
only way
body
we're
grow.
going. Yeah. Spiritual strength from every part. All those contact points we talked about, that soft tissue, the tendons and ligaments and else, what else there are, whatever else.
Would you place an emphasis on using those gifts inside the local church versus the like universal church, to use that term?
Mm-hmm. No doubt, at least priority wise, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of these letters, Ephesians, for instance, all of that would be. I think that's why if you listened back, I said you start here, at least start here.
Mm-hmm.
This, if this is the way I put it, because we had a lot of visitors, I said, look, if this is your church home, this is your faith family, start here, at least, because this is the body that you're functioning in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about, well, should I serve outside? Well, yes, of course, but not as a priority.
So how we didn't go into specifics about those 5 different roles, but the one in the middle, the evangelist.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work inside the church? Paul tells Timothy, do the work of an evangelist.
Yeah.
But the word isn't used all that often. I did a quick search,
and
it's not used very often. So, but it finds its base in just the word euangelion, the good news. And so does the evangelist have a place in the church? And how might that function?
Keep planting them.
Keep planting what?
Churches. Keep planting them.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Or
give me a practical example here at Calvary Bible Church. How would an evangelist use that?
Well, it would have to
role,
be, it'd be
function in that
keep
role.
Planting them, or then your primary responsibility is make sure you keep announcing the gospel to people who don't know it. Yeah. You can do that anywhere, but
sure.
But in these cases, when you have this list, and you're going back to the 5, right? Mm-hmm. So when he gives these 5 in verse 11, those 5, remember I said that the combination of those 5 was to get them started and sustained.
Yeah, kind of moving forward in their
get them started and get them sustained. You have these 5. Now their work is for the equipping. So rather than just see the evangelist alone, you need to see the evangelist plus the other 2. And so if I were going to be real specific and take more time on this, I would say what you have is you have the apostles and prophets who were the foundation of the first century. But then what you have is you have 3 functioning people now that continue to start and sustain churches worldwide from here on out until Jesus comes. The first 2 foundational, according to 2:20, Ephesians 2:20. So you have the apostles and the prophets, and then you have evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And those 3 are going to be carrying that message, starting churches and sustaining churches throughout the world.
So those roles, do they have like a correspondence to spiritual gifts too? Like I see prophet. Do they have the gift of prophecy? Are they one and the same, or are those roles that are more so defined by the role in the building of the body versus a spiritual gift attached to it?
I think you'd have to start by saying, what does the role require? And then obviously, yes, there's a spiritual capacity, a desire and a capacity that needs to be there. Whether or not you could pinpoint it, though, and say they each have gift or gifts assigned to them, I'm not sure. Yeah. Once again, God doesn't do that anywhere, so it's kind of hard to, we can take a shot at it, but we're guessing.
Right, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop my my line of thinking for now because I think it's starting to lose traction. But I think just to wrap it back up, to bring us back to the purpose for these different 5 roles, and for all of the parts of the body to be functioning, working properly, so that we can not be susceptible to human cunning or different doctrines, unbiblical doctrines.
That's right.
So that the body, this local body, can stay together,
Mm-hmm.
unified, and on task
Yeah.
as far as advancing God's kingdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's my closing word.
That's excellent.
Is that helpful?
I thought it was very helpful.
All right, great. Do you have anything else to add?
Nothing.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so listen, Calvary Bible, thanks for being with us and listening. I hope it's helpful. If you have any questions during a sermon or after on a Sunday afternoon or the following day, whatever, just shoot us an email at podcast@cbcmj.com. We love to hear from you. We'll get those questions addressed as best we can, and again, just continue to talk about what it means to live the life of faith beyond Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode. And remember, our Sunday sermons are meant to lead us to a life of worship beyond Sunday.